game plan more so than you were screwing up the game. What do you feel about that? I mean, you mentioned that you were trying to add energy to the team.
Every dynasty begins with a force of nature, and for Phil Jackson, that force was Michael Jordan. When Jackson took over the Chicago Bulls in 1989, Jordan was already a superstar, scoring titles, highlight reels, global fame. But he wasn't a champion yet. What he needed wasn't another coach. He needed someone who could control the fire without putting it out. That's where Phil came in. Their relationship started with tension. Jordan didn't trust the triangle offense. He believed winning meant the ball should live in his hands. Jackson saw something else: a system where everyone touched the ball, where trust replaced isolation. The first battles weren't on the court, they were inside Jordan's mind. But once he understood, everything changed. The transformation was surgical. Under Jackson, Jordan learned patience. He stopped chasing every shot and started hunting the perfect one. He learned to trust Scottie Pippen, to use teammates as extensions of his will. The result? 6 championships in 8 years. Every title built on precision, focus, and the mental control Jackson demanded. Behind the scenes, their connection ran deeper. Phil gave Jordan books about leadership and balance. Jordan didn't always follow them, but he listened. He respected that Jackson never tried to be his friend, only his guide. The more Jordan pushed, the calmer Phil became. That balance became the Bulls' foundation. Their journey wasn't without conflict. There were arguments, long silences, moments when pride almost tore it apart. But in the end, Jordan realized something no coach had ever shown him: that greatness wasn't just domination, it was control. Phil Jackson once said, "Michael taught me what intensity looks like when it's channeled." And Jordan would later admit, "Phil taught me how to win without losing myself." For the Zen Master, Michael Jordan was more than his best player. He was the proof that even the fiercest competitor can find peace in the middle of a storm. Every dynasty begins with a force of nature, and for Phil Jackson, that force was Michael Jordan. When Jackson took over the Chicago Bulls in 1989, Jordan was already a superstar, scoring titles, highlight reels, global fame. But he wasn't a champion yet. What he needed wasn't another coach. He needed someone who could control the fire without putting it out. That's where Phil came in. Their relationship started with tension. Jordan didn't trust the triangle offense. He believed winning meant the ball should live in his hands. Jackson saw something else: a system where everyone touched the ball, where trust replaced isolation. The first battles weren't on the court, they were inside Jordan's mind. But once he understood, everything changed. The transformation was surgical. Under Jackson, Jordan learned patience. He stopped chasing every shot and started hunting the perfect one. He learned to trust Scottie Pippen, to use teammates as extensions of his will. The result? 6 championships in 8 years. Every title built on precision, focus, and the mental control Jackson demanded. Behind the scenes, their connection ran deeper. Phil gave Jordan books about leadership and balance. Jordan didn't always follow them, but he listened. He respected that Jackson never tried to be his friend, only his guide. The more Jordan pushed, the calmer Phil became. That balance became the Bulls' foundation. Their journey wasn't without conflict. There were arguments, long silences, moments when pride almost tore it apart. But in the end, Jordan realized something no coach had ever shown him: that greatness wasn't just domination, it was control. Phil Jackson once said, "Michael taught me what intensity looks like when it's channeled." And Jordan would later admit, "Phil taught me how to win without losing myself." For the Zen Master, Michael Jordan was more than his best player. He was the proof that even the fiercest competitor can find peace in the middle of a storm. If Michael Jordan was the fire Phil Jackson learned to control, then Kobe Bryant was the flame that refused to go out. When Jackson arrived in Los Angeles in 1999, he found a 21-year-old prodigy who had already mastered the art of obsession. Kobe didn't just want to be great, he wanted to be perfect. Every drill, every possession, every conversation had to lead to improvement. For Phil, it was both a gift and a test. At first, their relationship was volatile. Kobe challenged authority, questioned systems, and often saw himself as the only one who truly cared about winning. Jackson had seen this before he had coached Jordan through the same storm of ego and ambition. But Kobe's energy was different. It wasn't about control. It was about legacy. He wanted to be remembered, not liked. Phil understood the psychology. Instead of fighting Kobe's will, he redirected it. He handed him books: The Art of War, Siddhartha, stories about inner calm and patience. He taught him how to slow the game down, how to breathe through frustration, how to trust a system instead of emotion. It didn't happen overnight, but gradually, the transformation showed. Under Jackson, Kobe learned the rhythm of balance, intensity and motion, stillness and thought. He learned to coexist with Shaquille O'Neal, even when the tension threatened to destroy everything. Their 3 straight championships from 2000 to 2002 were built on that fragile piece Jackson engineered. Years later, when the Lakers reunited without Shaq, Kobe called Phil again. He didn't need guidance anymore, he wanted partnership. Together, they climbed back to the top, winning 2 more titles built on discipline, not chaos. Phil often said, Kobe was the closest thing to Michael, but with a deeper hunger to understand himself. And when Kobe retired, he admitted, Phil made me see that winning starts in the mind, long before the game begins. For Jackson, Kobe Bryant was not just a student. He was a mirror, the reflection of every lesson learned from decades inside the fire. Every great empire needs balance, and for Phil Jackson's Bulls, Scottie Pippen was that balance. While Jordan drew the light, Pippen held the weight of everything else: the defense, the passing, the quiet intelligence that made the triangle offense work. Jackson admired him for one reason above all: he never needed to be the loudest to be essential. When Phil arrived in Chicago, he saw that Pippen was more than a sidekick. He was the glue. 6'8", long arms, calm eyes, he read the floor like a point guard and defended like a soldier. Jackson built his system around that kind of awareness. The triangle demanded trust, and Pippen gave it. He didn't chase the spotlight, he organized it. Phil often said that Pippen represented the spiritual core of those Bulls teams. He was unselfish but not invisible. He did the work that didn't show up in box scores: setting the screen, making the extra pass, shutting down the opponent's best player. Jackson saw in him the perfect expression of his philosophy: team above self. But their bond wasn't without friction. The 1994 playoffs, when Jordan was away, tested everything. With 2 seconds left against the Knicks, Jackson drew a play for Tony Kukoc. Pippen refused to go in. For the first time, ego cut through the calm. The moment stunned the league, but Jackson didn't explode. He didn't lecture. He understood. In that act of rebellion, he saw the human side of loyalty, the pain of always being second. After that night, they talked, not as coach and player, but as men. Jackson respected him even more for admitting why it hurt. From then on, their connection was deeper, quieter, unspoken. Years later, Phil said, Scottie taught me that leadership isn't always about control, sometimes it's about empathy. And he meant it. For all the stars he coached, none embodied his vision better than Pippen. He was the mind behind the movement, the balance between greatness and grace, the calm heartbeat of the dynasty. When Phil Jackson walked into the Lakers locker room in 1999, the first thing he saw wasn't talent, it was power. Shaquille O'Neal stood at the center of it all, a 7'1", 300-pound force of energy who could destroy any defense in the league. But Phil didn't just see a giant. He saw a challenge, a man whose strength was matched only by his need to be understood. Shaq had already been an all-star, a scoring champion, a global celebrity. But he hadn't yet become a champion. His relationship with Kobe Bryant was raw and combustible. Their combined greatness could light up the world or burn it down. Jackson knew he had to turn chaos into chemistry. He approached Shaq not as a dictator, but as a teacher. He talked to him about trust, rhythm, and patience. He reminded him that leadership wasn't about volume, it was about presence. Shaq responded. Under Jackson, he learned to anchor the triangle offense, to let the game come to him instead of forcing it. And when the finals arrived, he dominated with control, not anger. From 2000 to 2002, the Lakers became unstoppable. Shaq won 3 straight Finals MVPs, averaging over 30 points with a calm that was new to him. Phil often said, Shaq didn't just overpower people, he understood the moment. That transformation was the Zen Master's quiet masterpiece. But even great harmony doesn't last forever. By 2004, the tension between Shaq and Kobe broke the dynasty. Phil didn't take sides. He had always known that peace in basketball is temporary. Still, he admired Shaq for his honesty, a rare thing in a world built on image. Years later, Jackson described him with one simple line. Shaq reminded me that joy can be as powerful as focus. To Phil Jackson, Shaquille O'Neal was more than a center. He was proof that even the largest man on the floor could learn to play with grace, and that dominance, when balanced with laughter, becomes something close to wisdom. Among all the stars Phil Jackson ever coached, none challenged him more deeply than Dennis Rodman. When Rodman joined the Chicago Bulls in 1995, he brought chaos with him: wild hair, wild nights, and a reputation that scared most coaches away. But Phil Jackson saw something others didn't. Beneath the rebellion, he recognized a man searching for peace. Jackson knew Rodman wasn't like the rest. He didn't lecture him. He didn't try to change him. Instead, he listened. He understood that Rodman's intensity came from the same place as Michael Jordan's, it just took a different shape. Where Jordan demanded control, Rodman needed freedom. The key was balance. On the court, Rodman was a genius of instinct. At 6'7", he out-rebounded men much taller because he studied the angles, the rhythm of every missed shot. Jackson loved that. He once told his staff, Dennis plays like the ball speaks to him. That wasn't poetry, it was observation. Rodman treated rebounding as meditation, a quiet conversation inside the noise. The rest of the world saw distractions. Phil saw discipline in disguise. When Rodman asked for a brief escape to Las Vegas in the middle of the season, Jackson let him go. He trusted that the break would bring him back sharper. And it did. Rodman returned, locked in, grabbing every rebound, guarding every star, giving the Bulls their edge. Phil never tried to make Rodman ordinary. He made him understood. Their relationship was built on respect, the kind that doesn't need words. In his own way, Rodman embodied Jackson's Zen philosophy, freedom within structure. Years later, Jackson said, Dennis reminded me that even chaos can serve the system. He meant it. For Phil Jackson, Rodman was not a problem to fix but a spirit to guide. Because sometimes, the wildest player teaches the calmest lesson, that peace isn't the absence of noise. It's finding rhythm inside it. 5 players. 5 reflections of one philosophy. Michael Jordan, control through fire. Kobe Bryant, discipline through obsession. Scottie Pippen, unity through sacrifice. Shaquille O'Neal, power through joy. Dennis Rodman, freedom through chaos. Together, they formed the living map of Phil Jackson's belief that basketball was more than sport, it was a mirror of the human spirit. He didn't simply coach them. He studied them. He learned how each man's strength carried a weakness, and how harmony was born only when both could exist in balance. That, to him, was greatness. When you look at Phil Jackson's legacy, it isn't just about 11 championships or 2 decades of dominance. It's about understanding how the game reveals who we are. He turned locker rooms filled with ego into spaces of reflection. He made players think before they spoke, breathe before they acted, and see each other as pieces of one rhythm. Today, long after the cheers have faded, his lessons still echo through the NBA. Every team searching for chemistry, every star learning patience, they're all chasing what Jackson already proved, that the mind wins before the body ever does. So as the Zen Master sits quietly in Montana, we're left with the same question he once asked himself. What truly defines greatness? Is it the rings, the records, or the peace you find when all of it is over? Because in the end, Phil Jackson didn't just coach champions. He coached human beings, and in doing so, he taught the game to breathe.